hit some buttons, and we go live, and we say hello to everybody. Greetings, everybody! I don't actually need that up right now. I hope everybody's doing fine. God.
I was like, are you live?
It should be.
Let me refresh the page. This happens to me way too often. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's Twitch. It's so weird that sometimes when, like, someone goes okay, it's rare, but it's like, okay, you're on the page, something goes down with their stream, and they come back live, and it doesn't do it. So, like, if you're on the page, it doesn't always have you go to the live thing, you know?
That literally happens to me every time. If I'm on your page and you go live, I have to refresh the page.
Yeah,
and I keep forgetting that because, like, it happens, like, 90% of the time.
But then, yeah, it's that times that it works, and it comes back, and you're like, that's what I want it to do. I want you to refresh to that. Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, Twitch comments. I hope everybody's having a fine weekend, a good Saturday, had a great week. This was an interesting and exciting week, I think. A lot of little things happened that I think were fine. We'll have to talk about it on the tabletop side. But I think for my week was fun. It was a very busy week. I ended up being incredibly busy on Monday and Tuesday with helping out with my mom, taking her to medical stuff. A lot, like, both less and more than I thought it would be. It was that kind of weird thing of like, this point in time, it's less than I thought it would be. Just by a little bit. This point in time, a lot more than I thought it would be. So, how was your week overall?
My week was... Oh gosh. My week was so busy. I didn't stream at all because, like, I now have a new project at work that's going to take me a lot of work.
Yay, projects.
So, yeah. That's going to take a lot of my time, and I'm going to be swamped for a while. I'll still try and stream when I can, but I'm definitely going to have a lot more off days because I'm just going to be exhausted when I come home.
Makes sense. It's just that unfortunate thing that happens sometimes. You get swamped with stuff that you just takes up existence.
Yep. So, I mean, normally I work for like 4 hours and then I have 4 hours of nothing to do. Today I've been working the full 8 hours.
It's your work is very hit and miss with what happens. Like, they give you a certain amount of stuff, but when you're done that, you don't really have a lot else to do except for, like, you know, or is it like spread out, like you get like on and off times?
So it's on. Okay, if I'm gonna be honest, it's like the beginning of the month and the end of the month I'm super busy. The middle of the month I have almost nothing to do usually. But this new project I have is just going to be for a little bit that I'm going to be doing a lot of work for. So.
Anyway, we should talk about some tabletop because I do have a nice docket thrown up here for people to see right now. It might disappear. It's pinned in Twitch chat if you're joining us live. If you're not, all the links and stuff will already be in the description, so you can check those out. I'll be throwing those into chat here as we go.
Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, we can talk about that now.
Actually, so I've actually kind of heard that you should do that at the beginning and the end of your video.
Okay. Remember the basics for YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Yay, algorithm.
Yeah. So, yeah, because, like, most people don't watch the end. Once the end hits, once it gets near the end, they click away. So. Yeah,
true. That's the thing is, like, a lot of people leave by the end, too. You know, like, people stay for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
I guess we can get into the topics here. We do have a bunch to talk about. And we can start with this one. I'll link that here into Twitch chat, and it'll be linked below for you two people. And this is one that is both good, and I have some hesitance about it. And you may say, well, what's so hesitant about a Ambassadors program for Magic the Gathering? That seems like great for community. I think it's the thing that, with a lot of the ways Wizards does things, generally speaking, and how I don't feel they necessarily listen to parts of the community with a lot of things they do, I don't know if they'll choose the best ambassadors. Will they choose great ambassadors? I think yes. But it's like one of those things that there are people in the community that I don't know that I think are great ambassadors for the game, that I don't know if they would choose. Like, in general speaking. Like, they have a tumultuous relationship with Tolarian College, with the professor. They really do. And you know about it, but the way the professor talks about things, the professor loves the game, and will basically, ream wizards a new one if they're doing something shitty. So I think he would be a great ambassador. I don't know if they would choose him as an ambassador. And that's the kind of thing that I'm like, because he has an open criticism of wizards, and plenty of really good people out there do, I don't know, it's that one thing of,
So, it says that they'll be picked before every set. So this actually does have the issue of potentially people falling out of grace, or people, so there actually might be a bit of an issue there where it's all they can cater to the people who are, doing the best for them right now.
That's not exactly my thoughts about it, It's I want this to be a great thing, but it's, the thing is, with a lot of things with ambassador programs, they're meant to be good representatives, and yes, they are meant to be the best representatives. And I understand that that's, a thing, but these are basically, if I'm going to Disney and I see Disney ambassadors, they're probably being paid by Disney. If I'm going to this, or to, again, Twitch ambassadors are technically being paid by Twitch, but they also kind of aren't, because they're independent contractors, so that's a weird spot to be in for them.
Okay.
But this is one of those ones where these are people that are probably not getting anything from it and are just for the love of the game kind of people.
That's not entirely true, because they are going to be getting information and cards ahead of time. We'll be getting a variety of cards from each set before debut. So,
I mean, there are people that do that anyway currently, so I guess it's just a little bit more official, title for that?
Yes. My point, though, is just that they are getting something out of it. It's not as much, obviously. They're not being, paid, but... honestly, it really depends on how they implement this, honestly. It's not like it's a bad thing outright, but it's there are ways to abuse this, and there are ways to implement it well.
Yeah.
I mean...
I think... Yeah.
Honestly, the best thing for PR, at least for our generation, is to literally sponsor people who hate you. That it's kind of this funny thing where it's if you give money to people who don't like you, and it's or do this kind of thing for someone who's oh yeah, no, I think they made a bad decision with this. It's well, that still gives credence to the company, which actually can help boost sales.
That's what I said.
Thing.
Yeah, Larry in college loves Magic, and he is very positive with a lot of ways he talks about it. He thinks Wizards can do better, basically. He wants Wizards to do better, so he's willing to criticize them with the hopes that they do. So he's the kind of person that if he does become a ambassador, I would definitely be for this, But again, love to see how they implement it. I'm kind of this could be, just an interesting way of solidifying a lot of what they kind of do. They usually, for spoiler season, a lot of people, they'll be content creators, you guys can spoil these cards. Here's information on the card. You get this card to spoil. You get this card to spoil. Ha ha ha. Everybody gets a card to spoil. Or, well, I mean, I guess to preview, technically, but it's a spoiler season. But, I don't know. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. I'm a little hesitant, but hopefully it's good.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of... I honestly think it's an overall positive that they're starting this, because, I mean, let's be real, this means that if you do get some cards ahead of time from them, you won't get Pinkerton scented.
Unless they send you the wrong ones, and then they do it anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. It's wasn't that what happened? They sent them the wrong cards or something?
Oh yeah, no, the person got sent the wrong... Well, this was just from the distributor they were getting cards from. They got sent the wrong cards that, I guess, whoever was selling it got those other cards early. And it wasn't even, way early. It was, a week earlier. And I can understand the person who's going to be shipping them getting them ahead of time. You're just, it's just, against the whatever thing to open it ahead of time. People get, well, oftentimes with, video games, I remember, GameStop would get games ahead of time, Yep.
You just can't sell them ahead of time,
Yeah. And, so it was just an accident. Anyway, so we did learn that whatever Magic the Gathering series they're working for on Netflix is as good as did. So, I think this is like a little sad. I thought it would have been kind of cool idea.
You don't have anything in the topic section.
What? Oh, I didn't. I would want the topic section out. Damn it! I forgot to open up that in the images. I had one. I'll just use the same image. But Magic Show Done. I forgot. Okay. Thank you. I when we were having our intro, I had it down, and I was gonna put it up afterwards. I forget. Anyway, they were working on a show. I believe it was going to probably be animated, which would have been kind of cool. But it looks like that's dead. I think I think an animated Magic the Gathering series is probably the best bet with how much stuff goes on. You know, how much spells and things like that.
There's a Wings of Fire set that was canceled? Man, that's gonna make a lot of Dragon fans mad.
Where do they say that?
Oh, it says Netflix canceled a number of in-development animation projects, including adaptations of Bone, Wings of Fire, anti-racist babe. Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunately
So,
long story short, because I saw someone talking about this. It recently actually is, which again. I will save the, you saw something on YouTube, they may have a bit of a tone towards it, but there was some information in here that is very interesting, and basically, Netflix and the streaming system is like a really bad system in place that kind of, Netflix wanted to be the TV killer, and they just drew everybody else to the system. And it's not very sustainable for, how things work, because advertisements don't work on a streaming service the same way they did on TV. So,
I mean, what annoys me, honestly, is that they don't. Like, it's kind of funny, because it's all like, that's actually not on, like, the streaming services side, or even, like, the implementation, as much as is just, like, on the way... Like, well, it's a little bit implementation in my opinion, because honestly, like watching ads in the middle, constantly is annoying. Where it's like I'd rather just like, yeah, but also
have some at the beginning, and then you don't or maybe some at the end.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, and it's like I get it, but there are ways to do it minimally, and anyway, but I agree. It's like. They just don't work super well. I mean, I just remember, like, this is why I don't like streaming services anymore. I basically just watch YouTube, and I pay for YouTube Red, because that honestly gets rid of ads completely. And
I think someone did the math, and it's the way streaming services are. If you want the same amount of content today that you would have gotten on basically cable with premium channels, it's still more expensive. Yeah. Yes. So, streaming service just made things more... Again, it was... Netflix promised something that looked really good, and people went for it, and then everybody else followed suit because they were like, "Oh no, that's a new hot thing," and so it's just, I don't know.
Well,
it's a terrible situation where we get things like Netflix can't afford to do these things. Is the thing. They have a lot. They like start with these great projects that we're going to cancel, do them, and then we can't.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, there's also a lot more. It's also a lot more. What's the word? Transparent, in the sense that, like, in the past they just would have these ideas and then throw them out later after doing work on them. Now people actually learn about them and publish them, and then they have to be disappointed when they don't go through. So there's also that too. Like, there's 1,000,010 ideas, and you got corporate people who will just pay for the ones that they think will make them the most money.
That's weird. That's been the way it's been, unfortunately.
Yeah. Even though, and then you've also got the whole thing where it's all piracy's back on the rise because everyone and their mother made a streaming service, and now you have to pay $10,000 to get like a month to get this access to like the 3 shows you want.
Yeah, it's because everybody's doing it. It ruins the entire thing, And...
Yeah, it's like you need a few Like, it was fine when it was basically like Netflix, Hulu, and. I think there's one more, and I'm trying to remember what it was, but
again, it was unsustainable, and it does seem like if you follow, if you follow the money for Netflix, it was a bunch of people in investment stock and stuff who were like, hey, you know what? We're going to give you all this money. I don't even know the reasoning behind it. I guess it's just they wanted a monopoly over TV or something like that. They wanted to replace TV, and then it's just, it's a weird thing that, didn't really work.
Cable and TV,
it's a
we're
mess.
not going to let that happen. Yeah, cable and TV, we're not going to let that happen. I mean, that's the thing. Now, cable, I have with my new Spectrum, I have Spectrum that came with my apartment. And as part of that, I got this thing, which actually has access to Hulu and Disney Plus as part of a cable package. So I can get cable, Hulu, and, as part of a cable package, which is part of my rent. So it's whatever. Have I used any of it? Absolutely not.
Again,
should I? Maybe. Maybe I should actually try some of it out.
Again, I'm sure there's still good shows that are out there. It's just a weird landscape for materials. So it's like, I could be honest.
I actually love a lot of the animated shows that are Netflix originals. Not that I've watched them in a long time, but I remember I thought Netflix originals had the best animated shows for a while, in my opinion.
Again, I think it's we had an upsurgence in a lot of good material because people wanted to have things that were theirs, kind of stuff like that.
Yep.
But now with the money kind of shoe dropping and it seeming not as profitable on any level.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see how things go, but stuff like this that was a really cool idea that I was an animated Magic the Gathering series seems really cool. I would have loved that,
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have it now. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, because basically the way it works is to keep prices low, you need a very large chunk of the pie. And now that the pie is split so many ways, a lot of these companies can't make ends meet.
Yeah. Curse you, pie!
Yep.
Still. Unless. We continue on, though. We'll have to worry about the future. So we got shipping problems for the Player's Handbook.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. There's
Actually,
2 of them that are actually going on. So, the first one is... I'm sorry, I'm getting over this. This is the first one here, which is apparently there's shipping delays and issues with the Asia Pacific region. Okay, that's a regional kind of thing.
Honestly, that's not surprising. Asia's always had hard to ship places.
Yeah, so this one...
Australia, not so much, but Southeast Asia's always been a lot.
Yeah,
as far as I understand.
So this one was kind of okay, yep, that's kind of an issue. But apparently there is payment issues that also probably caused some shipment issues, especially it sounds like people that are pre-ordering, because there's also, and there's this other link here, issues with PayPal orders for paying for pre-orders for the Player's Handbook. So we're getting a double deal of issues.
How does that work?
Yeah. There were pre-order cancellations.
Oh.
There's some and this is dealing with people that were doing PayPal and stuff too. So, again, there are similar kind of issues. There's issues with getting the stuff out here. Payment issues suck. Delays suck. Are these we can expect things. This is a pretty big ship, technically. As much as I'm very negative on the book, there are probably a lot of people that don't have the Player's Handbook that, might buy it now. It's a new updated one. If there were people that were still playing and someone else had a Player's Handbook, maybe this is their chance to get a new one. I can understand why this would probably sell well. I'm not going to argue against it. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of them makes sense, but honestly, if I were complaining, I would know that this was happening. So they gave 2 options. One is that your payment method, had an issue when it came time to actually pay and ship. The other is that there's a tech issue, on their end, and it's it could be this, or it could be your issue. It's okay, yeah.
The issue one, I'm going to say at very least, is probably some people, but if this is happening a lot, it's not just a your issue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a couple of people. If if enough people it happens for, that you have to talk about it, and there's an article about it somewhere, because again, the community manager has to say something about it. Yeah, like a few people having problems. Okay, yeah, enough people to have a comment. Yeah, you got something issue on your hands.
Yeah.
I think it's option 2. You should really look into that.
Option 1 is what they said. It was theirs. Option 2 was your issue.
Okay. They're like, option, it could be technical, or it could be your issue. And I'm like, probably few people use that.
It's important to note, so that way the dumb people know to check, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is definitely important to know. So, keep in mind, check to see if you did pre-order it through PayPal, especially if yours is working.
I technically did, but then I got it through like some other store. Well.
So shall we talk about this article, the Chris Cox and AI article? So this was an interesting one, and I know some discussions in the server. I didn't really weigh on it because I didn't want to at that point in time. I know that Lightning and Momo were very adamant against this, and I can understand why, because it's the two major uses of AI right now are art and writing.
Yep.
AI overall is a massive tool which can be used productively in a lot of places, but the problem is we are overshadowed by the two worst uses of it that exist right now because they are not being used. What's the word? How have we talked about it?
Responsibly?
Responsibly, yes. There are two uses that are big right now for AI, are not being used responsibly. I'm going to say that right now. So, yeah.
Here's what I'm going to say, someone who actually studied this in college. Those are not the two biggest uses of AI right now. Those are the two most readily available consumer uses for it.
That's kind of what I meant more.
I know, but and this is the problem, is that most people go to those two when they think of it, because those are the two that are now easily available to consumers. But AI means something so much more in a corporate sense, and that's why I'm like, yes, he could mean those kinds of things, but also he mentioned he did mention ChatGPT and stuff, but it's like, it's mostly, we've already been using AI. It's mostly machine learning based AI, proprietary AI, as opposed to ChatGPT approach. And he talks about AI and how people are using it right now, and I agree with everything here. It's not, my issue is not with what he said. My issue is not incorporating it, because I think we're going to be incorporating it a lot more as time goes on. My big thing is more just, how are you going to incorporate it? You do not have my trust, Chris Cox.
I think that's my big thing, is I don't trust Chris Cox to use things in good way. Because again, there are arguments, especially because it was harder for me to put something in there, because when I first saw the article before Momo linked it, I'd seen Nerd Immersion talk about it, and it was the same link to the article that he had. But he had a discussion on it because he could see, especially because there was mentioned as a tool for a DM. So sort of a DM tool would be something to fill in details or something if you have an idea, and that could be
generate
helpful.
Ideas so that way you can work on them further. I think there's a lot of good possibilities.
Now,
my issue,
I was kind of I was a little hesitant in the way he was saying stuff there, because I was sort of I don't trust that it's going to be, the idea isn't bad, but again, I think my hesitancy was my lack of trust for Hasbro, I think that was what was coming in there. And
mine too.
And the thing is, the idea of a AI DM has been floated around, and it kind of feels like a terrible idea, because
there already is an AI DM. I forget what it's called. It's more of a fun novelty than an actual thing.
Well, what I mean is,
yeah,
there are things that use something that would be considered an AI DM. Basically, it's sort of like there are some of those games out there that are board games that use a app to run the game. That's effectively an artificial DM to run a game. A lot of these but those are usually very light D&D based games that are more board games that are something like that you can run with a person running it, but it would be something equivalent to like a Castle Ravenloft, type game where it's a tile building game, except which I've played that a few times, other similar games to it. But there are some that require a DM type character. There's an app that can run for it. Okay. But again, there's a lot that an AI can't do for a DM. And I think it's sort of like, I don't know. I don't know what they want to do with it. And it's like, I think the problem with me is right now, if you are a engineer or a scientist and you talk to me about a use of AI, I think I can go for it, because there are uses in that stuff that they use them a lot of times in those for computations and stuff. That is very helpful to those fields. If you're someone that's a corporate person talking to me about AI, I don't trust the fuck out of that.
Honestly, yeah. CEO talking about AI raises a red flag in and of itself. I would agree with that. My big thing, though, is just honestly, they did use it once for Trivial Pursuit. I forget what that game was, but it was like a...
Okay. Trivial Pursuit is a weird one because, you enter a bunch of information, and then you try to get questions out of it. Okay, that could be, if you... Let's say, if I wanted to do Trivial Pursuit for Friends, and I fed just an AI, just the scripts of every Friends episode, which would be all the information about Friends, and had it ask me questions. And there might be also, some, you could probably, add in some other, details about it from, that would be, show notes or something, or something like that, that would be stuff that was seen on screen. I could see that as being a very good use of that AI. And the thing is, you just taught that AI how to make Friends goddamn questions. That was the purpose of it. And, that's a lot more... That would be very something that I'm like, it's busy work. That's busy work. I feel like busy work is something that doesn't need to be, that could be replaced with AI,
Well, that is honestly what people want AI to replace, more than anything.
Yeah. We want it to be a tool, not a replacement.
The fact that Chris Cox brings up those types of AI are the more consumer side, or not consumer, the industrial, no, that's not the right word, corporate AI type stuff, is why I'm not immediately against this. It really depends on how he pursues it. He makes me nervous, but I'm someone who's we need more regulation in AI, because frankly we have none. The thing that really bothered me is I tried to buy, oh, what, this would be a cool product if there's a dragon design on it. Let me because I'm buying stuff for my house right now sometimes. I'm I'd like a towel with a dragon design on it. All of them are AI. It's hard to find ones that are not AI, and you can tell they're AI because they're trash. And the fact that they can just make these AI art, probably from stolen artists, from databases of stolen art, and sell them, even when they're not even well refined. It's yeah, that dragon only has one wing. That dragon has 6 fingers. That dragon doesn't have a second leg. It's I can tell. It's not even curated AI art. It's what's the first thing I brought up through a single search?
I'm gonna say also
oh, and they don't say their AI art anywhere in the product description.
Yeah. I think the other thing is the way he talks about it too feels like he's out of touch. Because he says I play probably with 30 or 40 people regularly, and I'm how many fucking games would you be in then? And also then, not a single person who doesn't use AI either in a campaign development or character development or story ideas. Okay. I'm gonna say this here, because there probably is something equivalent to, a type of AI in it. I have used random map generators to create a random map.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now. It's possible that includes some form of AI.
That's the only place that I have ever seen that I would use it. Other than that, I have never used it.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, yeah, like, you know, I actually, funny enough, would use ChatGPT to get, like, I need an idea for this type of setting. But, like, again, it's like, it's very basic stuff. It's like, and I'm like, and then it just gives me an idea, and then I basically don't use it again. So it's
that's an extra. That's not like a tool that you regularly use. That's a backup if I can't think of, like, again, that's like I have writer's block and I need to do something that I need an idea here. I just can't think of a good one.
Yeah, pretty much. That's usually what it's for.
And, you know, like, I mean, like, for me, I've done stuff like that in the past. I haven't hit that very much lately, but usually for that, like, my old go-to was, like, go watch a bunch of random shit and, like, you know, come up with an idea that I'm ripping something off.
Lately, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. Now I have a ton of ideas again.
But the thing is, we all do different things for that, and something like that is just another option in that book. It's just so, like, you know, he's like, it's a clear signal we're embracing it. I'm like, who?
with how much people have been up in arms against it in the RPG community, he's very out of touch. And I agree, it's very worrying.
Yeah.
My thought, though, is, like, it's possible further down the pipeline it can be tapered into something good. That's the thing, is CEOs are notoriously out of touch. And I know that, which is why when he says something dumb, I've heard people describe, like, working with Elon Musk and stuff. It's like, it's not about how, like, making their ideas come true. It's about making them think their ideas are good, taking them and then making them into something useful. So it's like, and CEO saying something like that. That's why I'm like, yeah, maybe something good can come out of this, because I just know how basically workers versus CEOs work. I mean, so that's why I'm not so against him saying this or him doing this as much as Momo and Lightning were, where they're just like, no, he's clearly gonna ruin this. I'm like,
I mean, like, the thing is,
there's not a lot of confidence in Wizards right now. But
I mean, like, I think I understand their stake in it because of the lack of confidence in Wizards. I very much so understand that. And, like, again, he has words in here towards the back end of his statement that are like, that's, like, we have to pay creators for their work. That's good. And we have to make it clear when you're using something that's AI generated. That's good. Those are good things. But again, like, how, I don't understand their implementation and stuff like that, and stuff like, you know, I don't know. So, I don't know, we'll see. I think the again,
Greg Tito apparently commented to this to some degree. There's an update at the bottom of this article. And it says, Greg Tito, who was Wizards of the Coast's communication director until recently, commented on Blue Sky, I'm deeply mistrustful of AI and don't want people using it anywhere near my D&D campaigns.
Again, that's the thing, too, is, like, when I think of, like, good uses of AI, I don't think D&D first. I'm not gonna lie. You know? Like, again, like...
Honestly, I actually do. But, but again, I use it so infrequently, but it's like the best when you need it. It's like a really nice little pick-me-up.
But again, like the ways that you talk about, it's not specifically something built for D&D. It's something that can be used with it. You know? Yeah. Like, and I think that's the difference here, is someone saying, like, we need to do D&D-based stuff just for or AI that uses specifically for our D&D stuff. I'm like, that I just don't see.
I just don't know where you'd go with it that's any better than what we already have, and that's that without basically trying something that's really stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But again, like, my thought was, like, I had an idea, like, what if we did something where it's like, you can say, I want a creature like this, and it will generate an idea and, like, stat it out for you. That could be cool. You know, like, I want a creature in a forest dungeon that has 6 limbs and 4 attacks. And it'd be like, okay, here you go. And it also now has, like, an eye attack, and it can do these other things and it's balanced and it gives it a role. I mean, like I could see that kind of thing working. Like there are ways to make something like that work.
Yeah, okay. You know, that's not a good argument for creating something that would, you know, like create a basic idea for a monster. But again, like that's still like
I'm just saying, because I can think of ways to do this, like because I can think of ways that this could work, I'm not going to be like, well, okay, for Hasbro I'd say, don't you dare try it right now. But in the long run, maybe you could. But right now, you guys do not have the trust to put an idea like this out, or the intelligence in your command department.
Yeah, it's definitely like a weird point in time to be at. So,
yeah, I just don't think this, honestly, with how much confidence they've burned it recently, I just do not think this is a good idea to push right now. Especially with how up in arms the RPG community. Honestly, the RPG community is one of the like primary communities that is up in arms against AI art.
Which I feel like is kind of sad, because I guess it's like it is a thing that really should be taken care of a lot. But I do hear about a lot of other places too. I feel like it's RPG, and actually like portions of the video game community has been rallying against it kind of
yeah.
now.
Basically, the two communities that have a ton of artists in it.
Yes, communities with a lot of artists have a lot of people that support those artists too. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, it's I agree that it's probably not going to end well, but I can hope.
We can just see what happens in the future. So, anyway, so there will be an interesting thing that is launching this fall. And I'll put this link here in chat. And that is a D&D Touring Experience coming to Toronto.
Touring. Okay, I don't know why, but what you said to me sounded like Turing, like the
Touring.
Turing test.
Touring, the tour.
Touring,
tourists.
yeah. Touring, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like, sorry,
Yeah.
I just heard there's a Turing is coming. I'm like, what? Anyway,
The Immersive Quest, a D&D experience, will launch in Toronto this fall. We don't know what the hell this is going to be like, but it's a thing. This Immersive Quest that, I guess, will probably... I get the... Like, the thing is, when they call it a touring experience, I assume it's going to come to a bunch of, like, different locations, maybe art places, museum places, maybe, like, small centers or something. It's kind of one of those weird things of, like, I do remember there was, many years ago, I remember going to a touring experience that I do remember does exist, and that was the kind of thing is when I first heard this, it did confuse me a little bit about what the hell they were talking about, and it took me a minute to, like, realize what it was. I did, like, an animatronic dinosaur thing that I went to when I was much younger. It was very kind of cool. Yes, they were probably not very accurate to dinosaurs. You know, when we're talking, like, you know, even, like, 90s. So, but it was neat. But it also toured around and would be at a place for a while and move, you know, and reset it up somewhere. And that's the kind of thing when I think about, like, touring experiences. But this also is, like, weird because... is this going to be, like, dinosaur levels of popularity? Or, like, you know, those weird things that come to different museums. I understand, like, okay, like, God, this is me, my brain working. The egg, Fabergé eggs. Like, the Fabergé egg museum, like, go to, like, art museums and, like, museums and stuff like that. Those exhibits that tour. But specifically, they are going to museums that are subsidized and are just bringing in also people to places, these museums and stuff like that, who are already going to places like this anyway. This is a D&D experience. Where are you going to place it? Is it going to be with something? Is it going to be on its own? I have many questions about how this would work, and I'm kind of curious.
I just don't like. It's very clear that almost no information has been given about this yet. So yeah, I'm curious too, but I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, they mentioned it could be like an immersive thing where it's all like, you know, you're in a world where there's like, it's like a little almost play where you fight people or something in a way, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah. You know, they're trying a lot of different things. It's not bad to try things. I just feel like this is like one of those things that I'm like, I feel like it's not going to be as successful as you wanted. It's just going to be another waste of money.
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know what this is going to be.
Oh.
Like, this doesn't sound like it's basically just. Actually, you know what? It sounds like to me, based on what they said, the Minecraft thing was. It's basically just a professional LARP.
I mean, they have their off-Broadway show that I forgot about until they mentioned it here, because I think we talked about it. Also, that is touring the U.S. I didn't realize they would have toured the U.S. with their off-Broadway show. Okay. Improv D&D show. Oh, boy. I forgot about that until they mentioned it in this article. Oh, boy. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yep. I have no idea.
They're trying a lot of stuff. I don't want it to fail, but I'm also like choosing some interesting stuff here. Well, that was very tiny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, should I say something? I forgot to.
It's fine. It's tiny. Anyway, this is a very big image now too, so I've got to readjust this, and it's very large. Alright, let's move away from Wizards and D&D, because they've done enough for us. Anyway, let's talk about some archetypes in Pathfinder. And why do I want to talk about it? Because there's a couple of classics coming back in these new archetypes. And I'll link this in the show. So in the War of the Immortals, we are seeing some new archetypes, which basically they're like, It is very much so the archetypes in first edition, though they have a version of them in second edition now, where you basically take some feats and stuff and trade out some class features and stuff to make it that you are some stuff. You know, play with.
Yeah, basically you take a feat which gives you some features and then allows you to pick up more feats that are related to. A lot of the multi-class feat, most multi-class archetypes, which allows you to basically pick up feats from the other class. And then there's the freeform archetypes, which just allow you to basically just add some kind of flair, which I actually think are really cool. I think a lot of them are really cool.
And these are ones also for some like specific classes and stuff too, where it's like you have a version of that class, only it's slightly different, you know. So it's very interesting here that we have a new take. Of course, the new one is the Avenger that they're showing off here, which is going to be added to the a rogue archetype. Which is basically inspired by the Slayer. Some of these are remakes of the old ones, but they're also of some like old ones. They also have the Blood Rager. Hey, what Joe's playing? It's now a barbarian archetype, and they reimagined it to be something a little bit more interesting. They're basically like, hey, look, this was kind of cool, but it was just like two classes smashed together. Let's make it something of its own with a archetype for barbarian.
Or you could just smash those two classes together with a class archetype if you wanted to do a sorcerer and a barbarian. Or
you could just kind of do it already, you know, probably a little bit more efficiently. And then the Vindicator, which is actually technically the Inquisitor. But the Inquisitor now is for evil characters. What? Oh, it's no longer full class.
I'm thinking of... Is it the Inquisitor? Hold on. Investigator. Sorry, I was thinking of the Investigator. Never mind.
The Inquisitor was a first edition class, which is very interesting. But Inquisitor as a word is oftentimes used with in certain way. Well, religious Inquisitors tend to be very extremist and do a lot of bad things, aka the Spanish Inquisition. And it has a connotation that way. So that's why they have the entire archetype be called Vindicator. And if you're an evil Vindicator, you're called an Inquisitor. Turns out, you know, when you do horrible things as an Inquisitor, they got a name for that, you know, now. Which I guess is a really good thing, because there really was a connotation for that historically. And it makes sense to make that kind of like the You know,
What's funny is it wasn't originally bad historically. It just became bad because of what Inquisitors did.
but I think that's the entire thing, is the language changed. So they put that because it was supposed to be more historical, I think, for the way that the Inquisitors were originally when they made the class. But, you know, they reflected upon about, like, yeah, there is more of an implication here. So, overall, it's a ranger archetype where you're a vindicator, where you do have a religious kind of thing, more like divine spells and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting that they took some aspects of those and kind of threw them together like that. I'm pretty cool with that, you know, updates and kind of evolution of it. And we're still seeing, like, some, like, these really weird classes, which Inquisitor, do we need a full remake of it? I don't know if it would work as well in second edition. So this way, we're kind of like...
As far as I'm aware, they already have the Investigator, which is kind of the idea. Even though it's not religious, it's like...
Investigator was an Inquisitor, though. They were two different things.
I'm saying the new the Investigator class is...
Yeah.
Well, hold on. What does the Inquisitor do in 1E?
The Inquisitor was a 3/4 caster who used teamwork feats and could have teamwork feats with their allies without their allies having it. That was most of what they did. They
yeah, I would say the Investigator kind of circumvented that because or took that over as like the concept, because like the idea of the Investigator isn't very good in combat by itself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea, is that it's kind of more of a support class.
The other things that Inquisitors got were judgments, and they could bane their weapons against something that they identify. You know, basically they can I can bane against this guy, so it's kind of like that's kind of favorite enemy actually anyway. And then the judgments were just like little sacred bonuses they could give to themselves, where you chose it when you activated it. Like, oh, I'm getting some bonus weapon damage. I'm getting some fast healing. I'm getting some bonuses to attack, you know. And those would level as you level to a certain amount, you know. But yeah, there were interesting little abilities, but there wasn't really anything super fancy. Like, the judgments, neat, but they aren't, like, they're okay. Bane was okay, but it was a lot of, like, oh, yeah, 3/4 caster and teamwork abilities, you know, where they were really the big, like, call of them. Solo tactics was what they had. And it was really cool, but, like, you know, with changing some things out in that, you know, I'm curious as to how they'll train them, but I think it would be interesting, you know?
Yep.
And
again, I agree that, like, yeah, a religious type, enforcer type thing would be kind of neat, and I can see what's interesting is that rangers are no longer spellcasters in 2E.
Again, I don't think the spells were necessarily the most important part about it too.
I agree. I'm not saying that they were. I'm just saying, like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out, like, that's why I think the Investigator really did hit that mark. And I'm totally down, like, having it as, like, another thing as well. Like, I'm all for, like, 10 different ways to play the same concept. That's actually, like, a sign of a good system. Because it means there's a lot of diversity. So...
Yeah.
But I could see, like, a multi-class Investigator with, like, a spellcasting class could totally pull off the exact same thing.
Because, current Ranger...
Yeah, they don't have 3/4 casters in 2E as far as I'm aware. They don't have half casters. They don't have half casters, 3/4 casters, quarter casters, whatever.
Well, Rangers still have spells. They focus spells.
Yes, that's what they do. So if they want them to have some kind of spell thing, they give them a focus spell system.
They might have, well, again, they might have their own unique focus spells, which are more divine connected. Or, like, maybe they can, like, use, like, Paladin's focus spells or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what they'll choose. Well,
for archetypes, they usually use someone else's focus spells. They don't use their own.
So that would make sense that we're like, oh, hey, we use, champions focus spells or something like that, while we're more, like, ranger built, you know, or something like that.
Yep.
Where they, like, because again, like, the hunting abilities, the ability to, like, you know, target things and stuff like that, that is within that, can take up some of their things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Ranger's a bad thing to build off of for an archetype.
Oh, I don't either. I'm not like complaining against this. I'm just like, I thought this was semi-covered, but because that's what I always thought. Like the Inquisition or Inquisitor. Did they have a sort of investigator in 1E? Something that was very.
Did they have an investigator in 1E? I think they did. Let me just check classes off the top of my head. Let's see, the hybrid classes, support classes. They might not.
They did have an investigator.
Oh, it was a hybrid class.
It mixes alchemist and rogue.
Rogue, yeah. So I think they improved what the investigator was by making it less a mix of classes. It was a cool idea that they walked away from the hybrid class thing. So I think like that's the thing is there's a lot of interesting ideas in the hybrid classes, but they were really things mashed together to create a cool idea. So mechanically, it wasn't always perfect. So I think like this, where they're kind of like trying to figure out a better way of doing it, is a much more interesting idea.
But yes, they do have a lot of things which do feel like merged classes, but that doesn't bother me. But I like the idea of an archetype because an archetype is just more variety. That's literally all it is, and I like that.
Yeah, and I think like they're doing archetypes in a much more interesting way than they did in first edition.
Yeah, like, first edition is just a way to replace abilities with different ones, and it's like now it's like still the same thing, but you get a mix and match.
Yeah, but like it gives you some extra choice. You could have more archetypes in first edition as long as you didn't replace the same abilities.
No, and I know that. I'm saying in 2E.
Oh,
I never thought about that. You can't select a multi-class archetype if you already remember a class.
There's no true multi-classing. Alternate can spend classes to get archetype. That's multi-classing in archetypes. I want multiple archetypes. Can I have 2 archetypes at level 6?
Special illness, market great. Some archetypes feats in other books have the skill trait allowing you to take them with a skill feat rather than class feat. There's also class archetypes you can modify. You never have more than one class archetype, but you can have multiple archetypes. So you can't have more than one class archetype. So basically, you can only multi-class once, but you can have as many other archetypes as.
Okay, so like I could then theoretically multi-class into Ranger, and then take Inquisitor when it comes out because it would be a Ranger archetype. Because then I would qualify for picking theoretically.
Let's see.
Or would I have to be Ranger and have a multi-class of like something else, and then take Vindicator as my other second archetype?
I don't think there are, but some archetypes have fused into all types. I don't think there are any archetypes that that force you to be a certain class yet.
Well, these sound like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I know, but so like the rules might be in whatever book that comes out with, because I don't know if there are any that require you to be a class. There are requirements, but some do have requirement, but
Character concepts limited possibilities. Yeah, blah blah blah. Archetypes allow you to expand the scope. Yes. I mean, you can take an archetype whenever, because you take it in place of your the archetype feats in place of the normal one.
Or in some cases, skills apparently, which I actually.
First, find an archetype that fits your character concept, then select your archetype's dedication feat. So it's sort of like. It would be kind of like a multi-classing later on to get some extra abilities, almost, I guess. Like, you know...
Oh, actually, okay. A few do have their own focus spells. I just found one.
Once you've taken that dedication feat, you can select any feat from that archetype as long as you meet the prerequisites. Most archetypes can take class feats. Class feats. An archetype feat is subject to any restrictions in class feat places. Yeah. I'm just looking at the updated second player core rules on archetypes. I think I read up on this before, but I didn't use it, so I forgot.
Yeah, and I haven't looked too far. I was literally like making characters stand. I'm like, I'm not gonna look into archetypes because there's a lot there.
Oh, I think you could theoretically multi-class multiple times, but I think the way they say it here, each archetype's dedication feat represents the character's dedication efforts in learning a new set of abilities, making it impossible to split your focus and pursue another archetype at the same time. Once you've taken the dedication feat, you can't select a different dedication feat until you complete your dedication by taking 2 other feats from your current archetype.
Oh, okay.
And you can't retrain a dedication feat as long as you have any other feats from that archetype. So if you were to retrain, you'd have to retrain the other 2 first, and then you retrain your dedication.
So you can have multiple, but you can't just take the dedication from like 5 different things. You have to have at least 3 feats. Okay.
And you can't select a multi-class archetype dedication feat if you're already a member of that class. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that part. How did I miss the rest of that?
Feats, spellcasting archetype. There might be a little bit more in this entire thing that I'm missing, but that's just the basic when they say the dedication feats. Like it's, yeah.
Yeah, so you basically need 3. So basically, there's a limit based more on
your class feats for how many archetypes you can take, because you have to take 3 per archetype.
There are some archetypes that use skill feats.
Oh, okay. Then so there are some that would use skill. Okay, they do talk about special archetypes.
Yeah. So
I guess whatever feats you have available to those archetypes, you have to take them. But again, you have a dedication that you have to at least take 3 feats in that archetype before you can take a new one.
Okay, the dedication feat is always a class feat.
Yes.
But you can then take some other inside the class, inside the archetype that are skill feats. So in theory, you could quickly get 2 because you get a few more skill. Yeah, interesting. Anyway.
And probably there's some archetypes that might not have the same dedication as a full class, too. Like some of the ones that use skills might not require a dedication.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I mean, here's another thing. I mean, some of the archetypes actually say, like, oh, you can also get this feat and this feat from this class, or this as part of it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway. We should probably move on, though.
Yes, we should. That was a kind of diving into what
fun little tangent.
Yeah, but again, it's understanding what they're going to be putting out now with their War of the Immortals and kind of thing. You know, they're planning on putting these new character options out for you to check out. So, if you're interested in them, make sure you go and check that out. Because hey, it'll be there. So. I want to talk about some demands that dragons have.
Oh, yeah, this thing. I'm very curious as to what this thing is. I have no clue.
So, we know a little bit about it. I'll put it here. This is the link to... that didn't work. God damn it. Can I shorten this?
Also, I realized... I remember we were talking with Momo while you were figuring that out.
Yes, I can. No, yeah, there we go. Okay, I shortened. That's the
yeah. So I know you were talking to Momo about like linguist. There actually is like, if you actually really want to be someone who knows like all languages, there's a specific linguist archetype in.
Cool.
So I just remember him being like, "Oh yeah, in 2e, there's not a real way to know everything." It's like, well, actually, there is.
So this is Dragon's Demand. It is a Pathfinder product. This is the that's the Kickstarter coming soon page. Do I have a better article about this? That one.
Yeah.
I've got a second look here. Sorry, I think this is for Asarian Studios, who are the people working on it. I had to go to their site to get a secondary. This is more of an article talking about what it is they're doing here.
There we are.
So yeah. Anyway, this is miniatures in tabletop style world. A 3D grid system, adaptive miniature poses, dynamic weather. Single player turn-based RPG.
Got it. So it's a video game. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be a tool or a game. It's a game.
This is a game, but they're doing it in a very interesting style. So that's, I think, the neat thing about it.
Yeah. I've seen this kind of style for things. There was I want to say there was a Warhammer game that was kind of like a style like that.
Like it's like you're playing with miniatures and adventures
and
stuff. Yeah. It's a cool idea. I kind of want to see more about it, but we're not going to see for a little bit, I guess, until they come out. And it's supposed to be, in 2 weeks, so seems neat. Hoping that it really is cool.
Yeah. When does it launch? It doesn't say. Okay.
They do have a website, dragonsdemand.com. No, that links directly to the Kickstarter. They were dragonsdemand.com. That links to the Kickstarter. I'm like, that doesn't help. I want to actually go to that Dragon.
Yeah, they don't have a date, and that's fine.
So eventually there'll be a website there if you want to keep attention to it, and if you're interested in it too. Again, it's meant to be a single player experience, so it's.
Oh, there's a trailer.
Is it working? I ask these questions because there's not all the things working.
I mean, the concepts are really neat.
That is true. The concept is very cool, and that's what I do like here.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun little animations, but it is very miniatures, and okay, I see how that's gonna work. Yeah.
So looks cool. Looking forward to seeing more on that.
Honestly, I love RPG video games. Well, I actually don't really want to play Kingmaker because you hated it so much that I'm kind of scared of it. But
Kingmaker has a lot of issues with its way it does things. Again, like, it's this weird thing that I do have a lot of fun. I did have a lot of fun.
Is it based off 1E or 2E?
It's 1E. Both of them are 1E, Kingmaker and Wrath of Righteous. Wrath of Righteous is better than Kingmaker, but Wrath of Righteous suffers from something that is, if you want to have certain outcomes, you have to know what you're doing in the game ahead of time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that, like, unless you just want the basic, like, if it's effectively, it's one of those things that's like, you really can't get a good ending, unless you're planning for it. Yeah. And it's such a long game, yeah. I would recommend figuring out which ending you want ahead of time. It's one of those games that if you're going to do it, and then be prepared, because it's a system that is very, it is like, you be ready for a lot of problems. There's a lot of interesting problems in the game that, like, they have a lot of things that, like, make it. It's a cool concept. There's some really good fun to be had, but the problems are very glaring and detract from it. Like, when you're having fun, you're having fun. When you're not having fun, you'll really not have fun. It'll be, like, kind of annoying and sluggish when it's very bad.
Yep.
So, I think that's the thing I have to say about it. Like, and, like, if you like, though, the type of game that it is, which is like a CRPG, I think this is what it is. Is that it?
Yeah.
Then I think you might like it more. Like, I'm not a huge CRPG fan, so that's my thing. Also,
yeah.
Anyway, do you want to build some Baldur's Gate? The Builders of Baldur's Gate is coming out from WizKids soon. They have a pre-order for it. It's a city-building game where you're one of the powerful families in Baldur's Gate, and you're basically building within the 9 districts, network across all the districts in your business, and you're influencing the main factions, the Council of Four, Flaming Fist and Thieves Guild, So it's influence building, I guess, being the most influential, powerful family in the city. So it's kind of an interesting city building / manipulation game, I guess, to a degree, if you're trying to influence groups. So yeah, I mean, like, it looks cool. I think WizKids has done a good job with a lot of products they've done, especially the Dungeons & Dragons ones. And you know what? I'm not against it. This one looks neat on paper. Again, we'll have to go more, but it was cool to see
I like that there's a
coming.
Dragonborn featured on the front. Dragonborn and a dwarf, I think, and then a human. It's hard to tell if it's a dwarf or a halfling.
But it's also, that is the old Dragonborn, though. Oh. It's not 2024 Dragonborn. You know how I can tell?
No tail?
No tail. You actually... You knew that one. 2024 added tail.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they made them actually
I think it's more they sometimes have tails. I think they basically pulled what Baldur's Gate did, and you can or cannot have it. It's like, it's possible to have a tail.
Alright.
But I'd need the book to actually know.
Yeah.
But I also know that was a thing that happened. I know that they had a tail.
I saw some people talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You think I wouldn't know what happened to a dragon person?
I don't know. I don't know what you hear. It's like, what
true.
news
I actually can be fairly oblivious to things like that sometimes.
It's like this because, like, normally it's like a lot of people will talk about. I'm going to talk about the species in the new 5e book, and so like they go through a billion different things to talk about them. You know, I was watching a video on that, and I had to stop because it was like it's just too much non-existent. It was like there were some changes, but they're just like oftentimes. They're just it's either just dumb or just like it's fine, whatever. You know, it's who gets subtypes and who doesn't get subtypes was just so like stupid. You know, I will comment like dwarfs all got combined together, but that was fine because it's sort of like no one really talks about the other types of dwarfs lore wise, and then like they just made them one big better dwarf anyway because they combined all the best parts of them. It's sort of like stuff like that. But the elves all have all their, like, subspecies now and stuff, too, still. And only one of them do they actually, like, give anything decent about them. I mean, you talk about high elves. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. If someone asks you what are the types of dwarves, you probably wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean...
There's the poison-resistant one and the armor-wearing one, I think.
That was pretty much it, yeah, I think. They didn't have a lot of flavor between the two of them, so that's why it was sort of like they just combined them into one and just combined all their abilities together. I think that was the thing. As at very least in something like Elves, where they kept them, it's like, well, they were kind of actually different, had different things, and it made sense to a degree, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, otherwise...
Wood Elves, High Elves, and Drow, Dark Elves, are all very different in terms of the way you expect them to be.
Well, I mean, like, apparently in 2024, Drow are mentioned. That's about it. Drow exists in there.
Oh,
they have stats for them. But I mean, like, no, I meant, like, lore-wise. And how, understanding what Drow are in anywhere, they're mentioned.
That doesn't surprise me, because Drow are a kind of terrible society, and D&D has been trying to sweep a lot of that under the rug.
The thing is, I was always of the opinion you can have a terrible society, but you have to understand how to make it a society that seems to actually work. And I think Drow, as they are presented in the old lore, really wouldn't work as a society. And so it's sort of like, they can be a matriarchal society.
Well, they were modernized, and they actually work now, but like when they were originally introduced, it was...
Well, I mean, like... Yeah. Well, I'm going to say here, Forgotten Realms' way of doing it was just like, the bad stuff doesn't exist, it's fine. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was we don't want the lore, we ignore the lore, we just do it. And I mean, like, that's like, it's just another elf then. Which I'm like, it's whatever then. You know, it's... Hyungar, which are Dwergar now in Pathfinder, are still relatively terrible people, and they still will take slaves of other people, but they also live in a very horrible place, and generally speaking, they're just a lawful society. now.
Yeah.
They didn't make them horribly evil, but they did also make them still, in ways, brutalistic. That actually describes their art and stuff, brutalistic, because it's very simple, very thing there. And so it's sort of like, a lot of those more negative aspects still kind of exist within their society, but they made it a lot more like just lawful, and we live in a terrible place, and we have to live with it, and so, like, if you're gonna kind of fuck with us, we're gonna fuck with you kind of thing. And I think that was a much better way of adapting that kind of lore in a very interesting way. So I'm saying, like, it's not that you can't do that, you have to do it smartly.
Yeah.
Societies can have problems and be bad in certain ways, but they should be societies.
Yeah. I mean...
A matriarchal society that, generally speaking, worships an evil god isn't a necessarily bad one. I just think a lot of the ways they displayed things with them and a lot of the stuff they did with them were a lot too extremes. And honestly speaking, Loth had problems that you can just kind of a lot and still have it be an evil, vengeful deity. So, I don't know. They could have made it work, is what I'm saying, with removing the problems.
Yes.
They chose not to. Anyway,
I think it's more just they also just chose not to address it in the main book and be like, that's setting dependent.
I think that's a lot of... Well, the thing is, you say that, but they present a lot of actual, like, simple stuff point. On, like, high elves and some stuff on wood elves that make them...
correct on that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is, the person who was talking about it was like, hey, they present stuff on, like, the high elf. Is it great stuff? It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff, and it's stuff that probably players don't necessarily care about. But it's like, you could have just done this to all of them. Yes, it can be setting specific, and you can change things in your setting. But I think it's sort of like, it's a weird thing that a line they walk of, like, being setting agnostic, but not being setting agnostic, which is a very difficult thing to do. I don't know. If you... Yep. I feel like you should just present stuff for a setting and be like, hey, if you want to change it, you can. You can just say that,
Probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. Or keep things like very, very generic fantasy-ish sometimes, too. For that very thing. Alright. Shall we talk about Discworld? Because...
Which world?
Discworld. This is something that, I think Joe would have been very happy to be here for, but, let me just...
The reason I said it like that is because when you first said it, it's like, it sounded like you said Disworld. Like, this world? Which world?
Oh. No, it's the world that insults you. It's the
I know.
Disworld. Discworld! Anyway. It's a new, Discworld RPG. It is coming through Modifius Entertainment. It's for the camp... it's technically for the, I guess, current edition, which is out. Which I'm not sure if... I guess Modifius has done it? Modifius, did you do the Discworld RPG? You did. And I think it was a few years ago that we put out the original new edition for it. And haven't done anything in for a while. So that's the thing I'm going to say about it. We haven't heard about it for a while. So this is actually a new campaign setting for that. Which, again, I'm very happy they're revisiting that, because it is one of those things is that, like... Oh, wait, no. Customer license to create games based on, is this a new edition or a new RPG? I can't tell, because they've got a page for it on Modifius' site, and I thought someone had done something. They're saying it's a...
I don't see one, so I just searched in Google, and I honestly cannot find one.
There are old ones, definitely. Yeah, Discworld.
So there's
old Discworld.
Well,
RPGs.
yeah, but there's but no. So what I could find, is there was a GURPS adaptation. There.
I'm just trying to, like, read up on, like, how it's says it. It's like... I read something wrong. That's why I got confused. Okay, anyway. Yes, okay, so last time we saw it was in 1998 when Steve Jackson Games put it in GURPS. This is a new system that they're doing. They're not saying it's 2D20, but it will be with the 40th anniversary of Terry Pratchett's first Discworld Discworld novel, The Color of Magic. So cool. If you're on part of the mailing list, you have access to the quick start rules. That's also a cool thing that they give people. 24 hours before the release earlier in the month. This is one of the articles talking about it. So yeah, it is a new RPG for Discworld. Brain work good. Yeah.
Where did the idea that the world is on the back of a turtle being supported by elephants come from? Was Discworld
mythology? It is.
Okay,
it is
I thought it was a
mythology
mythology thing. Okay, I thought it was a mythology. I was about to ask, was this where it came from, or was it in mythology before? Because I feel like I've heard of it before, but
Hindu mythology it comes from, I guess.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. In Hindu mythology, Earth is supported by 4 elephants standing on the back of a turtle.
Okay.
That is from. So yeah. Apparently something like some similar stuff does appear in other places, like great turtles and stuff. But the main one that's referenced is the one from Hindu mythology. So, yeah. Yep. Terry Pratchett, did a bunch of Discworld books. I don't know if he still does or not. I can't tell you that. But I do know, there hasn't been a lot of fans on his writing, and so if you're interested in this, yes, 20 years in the making, because we haven't seen it for a while, and yay, 40 years of the start of the book series. So, I will also link the sign-up page on Modifius' site other than just the Kickstarter. So if you are interested in following it, and getting that quick start early, there you go. Thumbs up. Okay. Let's talk about the Hedgerows. Let me link this one here. A fantasy game rustic fantasy game, they call it.
I prefer hedge columns, to be honest.
I know, especially if they're Grecian columns, or what is it? Damn it. I was going to make an architecture joke, and I think I screwed it up.
There's Roman and Greek columns.
Column types. It is Greek. The Grecian would have worked. Damn it! I was correct in my joke.
Yeah, I was like, that's probably.
I second guessed my terrible joke. Damn me. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? It's
through the Hedgerows.
Through the Hedgerows. Anyway, it's Osprey Games. It's basically like very countryside adventures. Probably like magic, kind of like, I assume, Fae-based magic, secret gardening, without being like, with that kind of idea of like finding a secret mystical place as you journey. That if you're in a familiar countryside, that you kind of go into historical, mythical kind of things very interestingly. Yeah. It's probably simple fantasy type stuff, but seems like an interesting idea. And they do focus on kind of like more through the changes of time from like Dark Ages into towards more towards like the Industrial Revolution and stuff like that. Of that kind of like modernization versus fantasy kind of time period.
Yeah.
But apparently it does involve some time travel and supernatural adventures too. So I mean, like, maybe that. And your Knights of the Briar Company, who are Champions of Light, a great name there. And you're basically fight the things that are going on in the world that are changing it, that are removing magic from the world. You're battling to protect magic, what remains of it, or the soul of the land and stuff like that. So neat. Anyway, and protect humanity too. And uses a checks and challenges system. Yep. It's basically very much so an improvisation system, I guess, because they say wits, imagination, charm, and mysticism to overcome problems.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it's not. It sounds like it's a non-dice based RPG. Like there are probably ways, or there might be some dice, but
yeah, it's going to be very much so like. I would think maybe more like the improvisation stuff that happens in a lot of, like, 5e, where people are very creative. The creative part of that, of like, maybe there is a check, but like, depending on what kind of actions, you might not need a check, or like the check would be easier, kind of like your descriptions and your ideas. It means that you can still do it, but you might have, like, there might be a restriction in there, but it might not be. But it's also like, I guess, like, depending on their system, depends on whether you challenge something or stuff like that. Or maybe you can just do things that are very creative. You might just have abilities that, I can do this, but if I'm doing something that's very challenging, I might have to make a check. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
It's not, I guess, it's coming out on the 1st. So it's on its pre-orders now. So yeah. Osprey Games, there's a link there. Check it out if you're interested. And I did want to mention, we talked about them putting it out, and so I did want to mention they do have the pre-order open. I think we talked a little bit about this one, the Space 1999 from Modifius. I'll look at second. Space. We need Tim Curry yelling it for us. They have pre-orders for the book now for Space 1999. For those of you unaware, it's an really old TV show, like 80s, 70s old TV show. Like, way before any of our times TV show. But nonetheless, if you are interested, they do have a pre-order for it. It's expected to ship out, at least this is the physical copy. They don't have a PDF available yet. I assume they might have one. They
generally don't. Modifius, as far as I understand, generally doesn't until their book releases.
Yeah, so they'll probably, if you're looking for a PDF, you can kind of keep an eye on it. But this, for the physical copy, will be pre-order. Will start to ship in 2025, January. You do get a quick start PDF if you purchase it, and it does provide a full rules PDF as soon as you would get the physical. So this is a quick start, the PDF, and the physical book right now. They'll probably at a future point in time just sell the PDF, so you just have to worry if you're looking for that, you can wait it. This is, again, pre-order on the physical copy. You do get the PDF copy with it. It's Adventures in Moonbase Alpha. It's in their 2D20 system. I support their 2D20 system. It's a great system. I've played it before. I give thumbs up to it. So, yeah. It's going to be another one that is a more licensed one added to that. They've done a bunch of those, both licensed and unlicensed, for the PDFs. For 2D20, they do a good system with it. Hey, the Fallout and Star Trek ones, I've definitely recommended. So, it's probably going to be... It's definitely sci-fi, but it's probably a simpler sci-fi because it is just you're on a moon base and having adventures on a moon base. I guess there could be more to it, but yeah. It's one of those ones that I think in my lifetime I may, in quotations, may have seen an episode of this, probably on 90s Sci-Fi Channel, when they were having reruns of old sci-fi and stuff. That's where I would have placed if I'd seen one episode of this. I could not for the life of me remember anything about that, so I can't tell you anything about the series. But, yeah, classic sci-fi series often have very interesting things to them, so maybe you should check it out and see if it would be interesting in the setting for you. Look into the classic sci-fi. I can, hey, the original Battlestar Galactica, probably, the original one, probably as far as I have heard, the story and show, for that at least, stuff holds up. Sort of old original series Star Trek. Some of those episodes are really great, some of them are not. And certainly speaking, the, special effects are going to be a thing to question. So I think it's the same thing as that. Don't ask about the questions.
Yeah,
but the story might.
I'm actually kind of impressed that there are like so many seasons. Well, not that
for
many.
the original Space 1999.
Yeah, I think there's like there's like 4 seasons.
Yeah, they went from 75 to 77. They did technically. There was 2 series they called it. Oh, because it's British sci-fi. Oh, yeah. I didn't know it was British, too. I've heard of it plenty of times. I didn't know it was a British concept.
There was like... I'm trying to figure... Okay, series... Okay, so there were 2 series.
Of 24 episodes each year.
Well... No.
They call it a series instead of a season, though, it looks like.
No, because...
Let me just take a look at it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Those are cast. Okay, I'm confused. There were 48 episodes.
Yeah.
So that's usually... Yeah. It's
So
like 2 to 4 seasons, depending on the show type. But I guess in this case, it's 2.
Yeah. And they did spread them out, because it looked... Well, the thing is, it looks like, according to the Wikipedia page, it had some good reception, but whatever reasons, it may not have had a good enough reception to get a second series, as they called it. So it was... Oh, I see another reason why it's called series. It was technically canceled and then revived for series 2. But apparently they didn't have a 3rd season because of some issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And a series and a spin-off for another character too.
Anyway, it's an interesting idea. It's it's definitely a little bit more obscure. Something that might be kind of fun to watch, but
I mean, they did
it's not that much.
Look, they did a John Carter of Mars RPG adventure, which I knew of that because I remember the terrible movie, which everybody said was not great on the subject material. I did not even know about the subject material until that came out. That movie came out. So sort of I know plenty of people knew about that. I'm like, John Carter of Mars. So making something based on the original John Carter of Mars source material is just such a... Modifius does stuff. We just say, Modifius, it does stuff. It does interesting stuff, but it does stuff.
Yep.
Anyway. Shall we get into our deeper discussion topic? Because I thought of one that was a good one to talk about, because we have one, and it has brought some interesting discussion in my Wednesday game, and that is a themed dungeon. Now, when I talk about a themed dungeon, I don't mean if you're in a fantasy setting, it's going to be a fantasy dungeon. What I mean is hey, Zelda. Zelda has an ice dungeon. They have a lava dungeon or fire dungeon. They have some of them have a shadow dungeon or this one. It's specifically very, very heavily themed, but not just environmental.
Or the most hated of dungeons in every Zelda game, the water dungeon.
Yeah, but that is a themed dungeon. It still has the Zelda motif and thing, just like every fantasy dungeon is going to have that. But what I mean is, specifically, it's got a theme for a reason, too. If I'm in a dungeon in a cave, it's not a theme to a cave, it's just a cave, It just so happens to have whatever's there. For this case, it's an undead castle.
Yep.
That is definitely a theme that we are seeing here very heavily. It's all undead most of the time. It's the haunted castle. That is the theme of it that we have been dealing with. And I feel like this is the case.
I think it would be fine if undead weren't so horrible in Pathfinder.
Well, it's one of those things that I definitely reflected a little bit on. That actually reflects upon a little bit better on more mega dungeons, especially ones that are supposed to be the entire campaign. I remember Emerald Spire, and Emerald Spire was maybe one section of Scarwall for each of its levels. The first floor area you went into, that before you went into the guest quarters, before you passed by where the big plant was, all that exploring there, that would have been one floor in Emerald Spire. But each floor then was uniquely themed in some way. whether it's certain things that are going on with the creatures that are there, whether it's certain environmental factors. Like, this one's overrun with plants. This one's got some, like, water kind of things going on there. This one's got this stuff going on there. You know, it did that, so each one was different. And also, Emerald Spire did it better because you could, like, teleport out, technically. So, I mean, it's like, we've completed an area. We can go rest, you know, outside of the dungeon. And there's a town nearby. There's a hub world. That's why I think, like, I enjoyed Emerald Spire a lot. Because it was interestingly built as a mega dungeon. This one is, sure, you can secure the area outside of it. Sure, you can leave. But there's nothing going on there. And you're constantly going back in there and fighting more undead. And it's oops all undead 90% of the time. You know? Or things that are undead adjacent. You know, like the corpse orgy eats corpses. It was an aberration that eats corpses. The plant, it's a corpse lotus. It eats corpses. You know? The dragon was, guess what? A negative energy dragon. You know, it did the same things undead do here. You know?
Yeah. I mean, so my thought is, it's honestly just the worst. In Pathfinder 1e, undead are just the worst. So
I agree.
It's kind of why it's just grating on everyone, because it's like they're the ones who have negative energy, negative levels, negative ability drain, ability damage. Just the kind of stuff that shuts down, like, a fight. Or
it makes it that even if you finish that fight, you have to, like, go rest.
Yeah.
It shuts down the ability to have that fight keep going in a lot of ways.
Or have that day keep going. And then you get the 5-minute adventuring day, which isn't fun. Because I think a big part of the fun of a big dungeon is resource management. You have to manage your resources.
Yeah. I think that's where, like, a theme can be bad. I think I can count some other themed dungeons where I can mention a game I was a player in where a themed dungeon was interesting, and one that another game I run where themed dungeon also sucked. Hey, Momo used a goddamn flesh cave. That was the theme of the dungeon. It was like a horrible outer, like, planar infestation which caused flesh to grow over everywhere in the cave. It was a theme. Was it gross? Oh, hell yeah. Was it weird? Oh, hell yeah. Was it interesting and it worked well? Flesh Cave worked well. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, one that kinda was bad, but we made it work. The water dungeon from Buccaneers of the Shackled Sea. It was literally a dungeon underwater.
Yeah.
That sucks. Because you have to use resources to begin with to even survive there. We have to use water breathing to work here. If we have to leave, we either have to have more potions of water breathing or more resources for water breathing that players are casting. You know, it is specifically bad that way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think it's... You have to do themes right in a lot of ways. If you don't, it's just not good. And the themes can be fun. Hey, you know, I think, what's a good theme? I don't think there's any real, like, good actual quotation theme dungeons that I could call good here in, Crimson Queen. Okay, the Flesh Dungeon, it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. The Flesh Dungeon, kind of gross, but it was fun. You know, it didn't overstay its welcome. It was exploring a dungeon. Momo did that one, I said. That's the one I talked about.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. That was it was very much so a themed dungeon, and it was fun. You know, I guess it's another thing about themed dungeons that you can't have them overstay their welcome. I guess is the other thing too, which a themed mega dungeon you skate a line. I guess is the best way to say that too.
You need variety. Again, I don't think this dungeon would be bad if it weren't for all of the if it weren't for the type of creature and how they work in Pathfinder. Yeah. Honestly, I think that, well, and here's the other thing I dislike about this. There's not really a benefit to exploring. There's very little you get out of exploring in this dungeon, which is kind of disappointing to me.
Okay, like, I'm not gonna lie, there are certain things in the way that it works that I could do that would just be more annoying with the dungeon and make sense in a way for the exploring. So
I mean,
okay.
yeah, if you wanted to do like random encounters and stuff, I feel like that'd be...
No, what I was going to say is the chain spirit, the thing you're trying to fight. So I both told the truth and lied when I said you had a week before he made a new one. Because what it is he can try to make a new one, and if he makes a new one, he has a week before he can do it again. So he could have a sudden, I've got an extra chain spirit. Now granted, I moved some things around so that he does have kind of a week before he makes a new one. And that's something you'll find out, like, you know, soon. I basically said, like, oh, you could theoretically take on 2 of his anchors next time. Why is that? Well, you just found someone who used to be a chain spirit. Oh, maybe he made a new one recently because that guy was removed of his thing. He was technically kind of your target, but maybe he isn't anymore. And he'll basically learn from that what to do about that, and it'll give you some options that will be really interesting. So, you know, I can say now because you're to learn about in the beginning of the next one. There is another chain spirit which is kind of like could be easily defeated if you go beat up the devil and steal something from him. The devil's holding on to an item that basically controls one of the other chain spirits and keeps it in line. And if you give it to that, it basically bashed instantaneously.
Oh, okay.
So go beat up the devil, claim that item, go beat up the new chain spirit that's been put in place, and call it a day. And then you got rid of 2 of them, and you could theoretically then go take on Mithrondar, and he'd be pretty weak at that point in time. The chain, the master of the chains. He'd only have 1 spirit left, which is the Lich. And, you know, if you defeat him, a lot of things are purged from this thing. The Lich probably won't go away, since he's not necessarily tied as the rest to some of these things, but probably a lot of his servants would be gone then, you know, and it would probably be easy to finish that out. Because the donjon's the way to get into the Star Tower. So you gotta go through there anyway. You know. So that's why I'm saying, like, honestly speaking, like, with major battles, like 3 to 4 sessions. Anyway, you're pretty close to being done the dungeon. You've cleared out a lot of it, and you've defeated most of the, like, named, like, high CR undead anyway. Which, again, it makes sense if you go by the literal interpretation of a lot of this adventure here. So, yeah. Like, theoretically, though, the defeat of this guy and him no longer being a chain spirit would have happened, like, some time ago or something like that. But, you know, I'm making it more recent, just to make it more logical as to why the chain spirit is being replaced. Which is fine. Again, that's harkening back to, like, that's the theme of this place. It's very undead, it's spirits, it's ghosts, it's like when we were first coming into here, in order to make the theme, they had that huge list of stuff that was going on. It was way too much shit that they were, like, describing that was going on in this place. And making things difficult, and making things weird and annoying, you know, and stuff like that. It's like, this is just too much. You know? And I think that's the thing, is you can take a theme too far. Hey, like, a volcano area where everybody constantly would take fire damage. That, again, is a drain of resources, and it's one of those ones that's a drain of resource that, unless you have some kind of permanent way, like, you give everybody rings that give fire resistance to begin with, they're going to have to leave and come back.
You know what? That actually
resting in a dungeon... you do yours. I was just going to say, resting in a dungeon does really suck, and usually you don't want to do it, but you want to kind of have that option in case of emergencies. Like, theoretically, even at its worst for Scarwall, you do have that emergency, I could rest here, in the way that it's presented, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, what I was going to say is that could be a fun start to a fire adventure, though, is you take constant damage, but we sent in a team with our fire-resistant rings before you, and they all died. You have to get them before you can stop taking damage. That might be a fun way of handling the start.
Oh, that would be a great way where you have to kind of temporarily do it, where you learn that there's, like, you know, some protection in there, or maybe there's an area that is protected by magic inside this, like a temple or something that's in there. But you have to fight your way to that temple through some caverns. It's still overall that volcano theme, but it's like, it's got this idea of like, we've got to get into the temple and secure a point in the temple, like, complex or something where we protect it. There's a lot of ways to do it that make it interesting. There really isn't that in Scarwall. I understand why it's not, because it has the retreat option very well. But again, the retreat option and undead beating you up kind of suck. So it's like, it's one of those points where it does very much
well,
so.
Honestly, if you couldn't just walk out in Scarwall, it would have been not fun. Because when you get that damage and you're like, okay, well, can't do anything more until I rest. Now we have the option at least.
Yeah.
So like, if you didn't have that option, Scarwall would not be fun. I would not even have fun. And I'm the only one having, me and Joe.
Well, again, like, I think it's one of those things is, like, you're having a lot of fun because it is, like, it's the thing I feel bad about in a way, is because it's your first, like, large mega dungeon, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't, like, a really great one.
No, it's really not. I can tell that.
It's not the worst, but it's kind of just, like, mediocre to kind of bad. You know, like, it could be a lot worse. Like, you know, there's been certainly dungeons that I've had players that have kind of encountered that are just really bad. But this is just like one of it skirts this line of like, that's kind of,
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that we approaching the idea of a mega dungeon is a really cool, interesting idea.
Yeah.
Or no mega dungeon, a theme dungeon.
A theme dungeon, yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be there. I mean, a theme could also just be, like, it doesn't have to be the monsters, but it could be the environment as well.
I think that's, I think
it was kind of touched on, but I know, like, but I don't think it was explicitly stated.
Like, types of monsters, you know, that's one. I mean, like, you know, the types of monsters probably the easiest theme of, like, you know, low-level players. Hey, we're in a goblin dungeon, you know, like it's like a goblin lair or something like that. Then the theme will be goblins, you know. So like that kind of theme, I think that's a big one that shows up a bunch.
And I would think there's two ways to handle a theme dungeon. Either one, lots of variety, or B, little variety but make it tough. So basically, like, you can learn what the enemies do, but each battle is still going to be tough, so you need to learn that to get through it.
I think that's where, like, something like more like a goblin dungeon has more of that variety, because it's like undead. I don't have to say that. Undead in most places do certain kinds of things. Like, a goblin is more of a humanoid, and therefore you can have different roles. Like, these guys are arching you. These guys are in melee. These guys are using animals. This one uses, like, alchemy. Oh, this one has, like, you know, some, like, druidy magic. This one's like a tough one, you know, that kind of stuff. And one of those could be the leader, you know. Maybe this one's doing some, like, divine magic and is dealing with some kind of, like, dark god, you know, something like that, you know. Maybe they have a creature they made a deal with that's there that can add that variety. Where, like, a haunted cavern, undead hate life in all places, so it's like, oops, I all hate life kind of thing, and there's definitely some, like, toughness to those kinds of, like, the creature theme is cool in a lot of ways, but you do have to be careful with it, that it's something, like, humanoids add variety to themselves. Some other ones
class and
don't.
Flair.
Yeah, class and flair. So, like, creature variety, be careful with that one, too. Environmental variety, that's a good one. Or environmental themes, like volcanoes for hot, a desert place, maybe a lot of sand there or something that, like, you know, maybe you have to use magic to clear away sand. So you have to, like, you're like, oh, it's partially buried, you have to use wind magic to clear away some sand from certain things. That could be kind of cool. And you, like, uncover parts of the dungeon.
I mean, that also sounds a lot like a to some degree a puzzle dungeon, but
Well, a puzzle dungeon.
it's an obstacle. Yeah, yeah. Oh, of course, I know.
Yeah.
I
think that is a different type of dungeon, though, too. That I think we've talked about. Puzzle. Maybe we should talk about puzzle dungeon in the future, in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, puzzle dungeons don't work well in RPGs.
I think that's the problem with puzzles. It's a cool idea,
unless
but the problem with puzzles.
Yeah, the issue is you have to have a group who's really into it. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. But yeah, for
the future topic. Puzzle dungeon. Can it work? That's the future topic. But theme dungeon. Back to that. You said environment. I think there are different ways to do the environment. Like, it is specifically a dungeon to whatever overall environment you're at. Sort of like, if I'm on a volcano, it's going to be hot and lava,
Yeah, I mean, the underwater dungeon, for example. Like, I mean, obviously you're going to find, like, underwater creatures there, and in the fire, you're going to have fire-resistant creatures, so it's like, the environment kind of dictates the creatures, but, maybe you can find a devil and a red dragon and, salamander?
Salamander, let's see here,
so it's like there's a lot of different
classic
varieties.
D&D Azer, the fire dwarfs could be there.
So there's like a lot of fire
elementals.
creatures, and that's still a theme. Or you could have a dwarf dungeon where everyone's dwarves, or you can have a goblin dungeon, or you can have a devil dungeon, or even just an unholy dungeon. Don't do holy dungeons though. There's not enough of those creatures.
I think also, like, environment comes in a lot of different ways too. Like, it could be like a I don't want to call it like weather, but like something like equivalent to that. Like, this dungeon is filled with like magical energy. So maybe like, if you're playing like a dungeon that's themed to magic, maybe anybody using a spell there, friend or foe, or a magical ability, has to worry about something like, if you're doing 5e, like the chaos effect of a, of sorcerer.
Wild magic, yeah.
Like a wild magic, like a dungeon or something like that, where that's a theme there. Or it could be something like, I'm gonna say, like, Scarwall has multiple themes on top of it, because it is an undead dungeon with a creature, but also because of the environmental stuff. A lot of those things are like, it's unhallowed dungeon, which boosts the undead. But you could have something like an unhallow, it's like a cursed place, having an effect on its own as part of the battle of it. Like, I think, the entire thing is, Scarwall with a couple more variety of creatures, it could be kind of haunted too, but like, or, I don't know. There's a lot of ways that it's hard to improve Scarwall, like, without, like, thinking about.
The problem with Scarwall is not wholly the theme. I think undead theme in Pathfinder is not fun. I realize that, but honestly, the issue is just that there's not...
Especially high level.
Yeah. And I get you can't populate every room or have a fight in every room. I get that.
Yeah.
And I get that you took out some that weren't going to be fun.
Yep.
But even then, there are a lot of just parts where we were just going through empty rooms.
I think there's a pause here. I think this is a thing that is going to be a lot more important when you go into the last adventure and attacking the castle. Because I will have to take a look. Because they give me the full map of the castle. You don't have to clear that. You will have a job to do. You will probably have a generalized map of where to go. But you might also have to know, like, maybe if there's other individuals to attack while you are there. You either have to assign someone to do it or go do it yourself kind of thing. So it will be like a much more straightforward kind of place to go to. Because you're also not wandering around. It's sort of like, oh, hey, here's where the queen's chambers are. Here's her throne room. She's probably going to be in one of these two places. Let's fight our way to there. That kind of thing, Do you have to fight every battle? No. Do you have to explore every room? No. You're there. I have a full map of it. I know what's in all these places, so maybe if you're, like, fighting in this room here and happen to be there, you might attract the attention of someone nearby. That kind of stuff, Anyway. But that's a dungeon that is quite large, but you're probably not exploring all of it. So it's not really a mega dungeon that you're exploring, and certainly doesn't have much of a theme, too. It's just a castle with a bunch of people. it is in a way a theme, but it is much more like
you can argue that every dungeon has a theme, but I get the idea of like there's a different
theme.
type.
Or the theme is not important to the dungeon. That's what I said.
The theme doesn't dictate to the dungeon dictates theme.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, because, like, I mean, you can have an underground dungeon that doesn't have earth monsters in it, you know? So it's like, yeah, it's like... Or you can have an underground dungeon that is specifically an earth dungeon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, like, theme is important. Or you can have a water dungeon full of people trying to, like... Full of undead. You could have a water dungeon full of undead.
Yeah.
That is possible. So yeah, theme doesn't necessarily have to go with the dungeon, but in some cases they tend to. It's generally a good idea to have an idea of what theme you want when making your own dungeons.
Yeah. And again, you're probably going to use some kind of theme, but how strong that theme is and how important it is. It's like a cave is a cave is a cave. A cave is technically a theme. But you're probably not going to necessarily be thinking, like, I must cave, do everything here related to the cave, you know, or something like that. You know? It's a thing that's there, more or less, you know. It's part of it. It is the environment, but it isn't important to what's going on there or how your characters will react, you know.
I mean, unless you want, like, a cave full of cave creatures, and then there's a cave full of orcs who are stationed there, you know?
Yeah, like, if it's a cave that orcs have made a fortification in it, then that's the theme of that place. It's the orc fortification is the important part about it. You'll probably find signs of orcs around there. You know, it adds to that theme of it, and that becomes like, it's no longer just a cave, it's the orc cave, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. Themes are, I think when it really comes down to it, themes are most fun when you, like, pick a theme and really stick to it. Like, fire is a good one. Like, generally, I think for it to be a theme, you generally do want some aspects of the area itself to interact. It's not just, like, if you have orcs in a dungeon, it's not like the orcs don't have an orc aura that make you feel more orky while in the area. You know, but like a fire dungeon, there's heat, you know what to expect. There's heat, there's fire, there's monsters will be resistant to fire, probably weak to cold. Generally, I would consider it a theme if, like, and like undead, the undead dungeon, it's like they're weak to holy or radiant or positive energy.
And there's probably going to be a lot of different undead there, and maybe again, like, also there's probably things related to it, like the fire dungeon has, you know, lava and fire. The orc dungeon has, like, maybe some, like, whatever version of the orc culture you have, totems there, or like things that represent that culture around the area. Maybe, like, you know, places to sleep and stuff like that. The undead dungeon might have bodies and stuff like that, or corpses around, or, you know, like, signs of why undead are there. There will be things related to that build the environment out. All of these could be in a cave of some kind, you know, but it is like layer on layer on layer to build out an environment that is unique and interesting, you know, and certain things do affect your characters or make a difference. Like, if they know they're going into a place filled with a certain type of creature, they can be ready for it. You know, and that's a good thing for them to be aware of, I think, too, to say, you know. If they are going into an area that is probably controlled by goblins, you should know about it. Going to an area controlled by undead, you should know about it. I mean, then it also comes down to, like, I'm not going to lie, it also comes down to you, like, for Scarwall, I didn't prep the players enough. I'm not going to lie, I didn't. I should have suggested things like, hey, you should have a Wand of Lesser Restoration at least. You should have some material to cast restoration spells. You should be ready with them. Things like that, you know.
Honestly, I'm disappointed the Adventure Path didn't, like, put those in the dungeon before it. Let's be real.
You got some, but it's also, like, I think the thing is that the Adventure Path assumes you're high enough level and enough knowledge as a Pathfinder player to prepare these things. And that's on me, because certainly speaking, I definitely don't think a couple of you are as familiar with a Pathfinder. Like, you and Lightning, a high-level Pathfinder, don't know a lot. Joe hasn't played in a lot of years. Momo hasn't played in a lot of years. And River hadn't played Pathfinder in a long time and was coming back to it, so certainly hadn't played it in a lot of years.
Momo and Lightning know enough to where they probably could have thought of it, but I think they also just were like, those are expensive. Why would we buy them?
It's a practicality that sometimes doesn't exist in those minds, especially because a lot of times when you're thinking of character and equipment, you do not think group loot. And that's actually in all games. Like in 5e, I don't think group loot when I think of getting items for my character. Ever. Really. Well, sometimes you do.
I do like that Pathfinder has almost like a necessity for group loot. I actually like that. I like that we keep track of it. I like that we, handle it. I think that's fun.
I think there is aspects to it that are good and aspects to it that are bad the way that 1E does it. Because again, it's 1E. It's a little old.
Yeah,
so I think
1E just throws a bunch of loot at you and expects you to sell and then buy new loot.
I think they do some of that kind of stuff in 2E, but again, it's one of those things is I haven't done the remaster project. I did up to 10th level in 2E, the original. So again, they're mostly the same. Some changes. It's like a slight update, but
yeah, 2E expects you, as far as I can tell, expects you to upgrade your equipment more than replace it.
Yeah, and then of course there is some level of group loot there still too. And again, it's not to say there isn't that in 5e, but I feel like 5e doesn't pertain to it as heavily because wands are someone's going to have to use them. Potions are someone's going to have to use them. Much more so just put it there, and then if we need it as a group, we can access it. It's because a lot of times the wands are a certain number of times per day kind of thing. You're not, and they're not the same kind of I cast a spell wands and stuff like that. Or this.
I'll let you go. Finish. Sorry.
Or I was gonna say scrolls. Less people have options of using those scrolls, so you're just going to give it to the person that can use it. Things like that,
Yeah, and Pathfinder, yeah. But this does give me an idea, and I kind of now want to do this. Literally, give the players a shared bag of holding that's literally hey, you all can basically have access to this loot sheet. Mm-hmm. All the stuff you're not sure who's going to need when can go here. I think that's a great idea. I might give that out at some point.
I definitely try to give out a bag of holding pretty often, though.
Well, yeah, but imagine but what I mean by that is it's a bag of holding that is connected to 4 different bags.
Oh.
And anyone can draw it out. Sorry, I didn't make that clear.
So it's technically 4 bags of holding that are connected to the same
dimensional pocket.
Oh, that'd be kind of neat. Yeah, that's a cool idea.
So you can basically say, this is your group loot, goes in here. You can all, and, maybe make it a full round to pull out from the bag because it's big and, it's shared, so it makes it harder or whatever. But, basically it's just now you don't have to worry about saying who's actually the one carrying the group loot. You all are.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool idea, definitely. And would encourage, more variety in using some of these things in any system. Well, because I was going to say 5e is a little more restricted to scrolls because in Pathfinder
5e is just restricted with magic and consumables in general.
Yeah, in Pathfinder, you're usually going to give it to the person that can cast it, but technically speaking, use magic device works. And honestly, if you max out ranks in that, you're probably fine with using most magic items. It's not that bad. Scrolls suck in and use magic device sometimes, high level ones. They do something. I'm not going. I knew a rogue that did a build for that, and it worked really well, and it was really silly. Anyway,
But yeah, as far as themed dungeons go, I mean, there's not a ton to say. Just I think there's a lot of cool things you can do. You have to be careful. Also know your system, and don't make it too tedious. If your system doesn't have good underwater rules, don't make an underwater dungeon.
Yeah. Or do something don't make it completely underwater. Have sections of it that are above, are in a cave or something. Or if it's a temple, have areas that have had air pocket in them. Same with the cave. Areas that you can get to that are not just underwater. 100% underwater. Yeah, it's how we mentioned the Zelda water dungeons. There's a reason everybody hates them. It's the exact same way. Do some stuff to make it easier on the players.
Yeah. To be fair, the water dungeon in Zelda is also generally the biggest puzzle dungeon.
Yeah.
which is why a lot of people hate it.
Yeah.
But
oh, sorry. But yeah,
no. Generally, the slow movement, fighting underwater, you generally have a whole different movement system, which generally also makes people dislike it.
Themes are a cool idea. Just use them properly, and you don't have them make problems for your players.
Yeah.
I think, I'll say it. Undead dungeons probably better at lower levels than Pathfinder at very least.
Yeah, because you don't have as much you don't have as much drain. More.
Yeah,
at least.
Ghouls suck because they paralyze you for a little bit, but I mean that's just that's not nearly as bad as some of the other things. Fear and paralysis, they can kind of suck, but usually they can be cured. But also just skeletons and zombies and stuff like that, or creatures that just have attacks. I'm sorry, even some of these creatures that do a lot of negative energy damage when they touch you, the ghost with its touch. I'm sorry, that's actually it hurts a lot, but if it's just doing that, that's not so bad. We're in comparison.
I mean that's the thing, the whole thing where I'm wait, this thing has a plus 25 to its touch attack.
Yeah.
I'm like, who has that? Unless you have ghost touch. Wait, I'm an idiot. I had ghost touch armor.
You gotta remember that.
Yep. No, I'm like, unless you have ghost touch armor, and I'm like, wait a second, I did have ghost touch armor. I'm an idiot.
It's not my job to remember that.
I'm not saying you're an idiot. I'm saying I'm an idiot.
I know, but it was one of those things. It's yeah. I mean, that one was at least a little bit more interesting in enemy, but it was technically a completely optional, in a way, enemy.
It was. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed the fight. It's just I did get half my health when I was caught flat-footed right off the bat. Honestly, the ghost only hurt. I will tell you fair. The ghost
arrow guys that
anyway.
Are with it. Yeah.
Because they basically, because all of them went before me, and pretty much half, and they hit half their shots. It took my health down, literally a bit lower than half in the first round. I didn't actually take a ton of damage after that. I actually took a reasonable amount of damage after that. After things actually came down. But
chances to confront them separately, I will tell you.
Interesting.
Well, the thing is, the archers are in that big room that you first come into in that middle area. If you fight the Corpse Lotus first, they take note of you and then move.
Oh, because they're out and they can see into the...
Because they have the arrow slits there that they can see what's going on. Yep. So while you were fighting the Corpse Lotus, they took note of that and then got into defensive position. And they're undead, so they just stayed there because they were ready for...
something that'd be a lot make this a lot better. Dungeon,
I guess also because the dragons started coming in and out too, so they assumed something was going on frequently.
Yeah, but when we were fighting the Lotus, I think it would have been cool. This isn't too much of a slight on you because this is a hard thing to think of unless you've read the whole dungeon and have it really memorized. But I would be roll a perception check. Oh, you notice some movement as if someone might have been watching you in that tower over there.
I think the thing is also they do have the option of, if things are looking bad, they can install themselves into the fight. But they do have strategies, so it's sort of more than just surprising you really doesn't help. They wait until if it looks like something is, and you did a pretty good job.
I'm just saying I'm just saying it would have been a nice flare.
I forgot. It done much. I know. I could have had them attack you. It was technically also an option there, but I forgot about them while we were fighting the Lotus, because it is a huge dungeon, and they don't mention it in the Lotus section. They mention it in their room.
Yep. And that's why I'm not blaming you. It's not a well-written... Honestly, part of the adventure path is very poorly done.
This is something I don't like in any of their adventure paths. If there's another room that deals with your room, just make note of it. That's all I ask.
Literally say, interacts with room number C.
Yeah. Just make me a note that it interacts with if you're in C5, interacts with something in C7. Just make me know, in there that I have to pay attention to that other room because something could interact with it together. sort of, you know,
Yep.
it's like, it just is... And they don't do that at all, and it's my most annoying part about any of these older adventures, at least these really old ones. They really don't do it. I don't know if they fixed that in later first edition Adventure Pass, but certainly in those older ones, it just is there. It annoys me. We should probably talk about our week in Game of Time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We did not have Joe last week. We're having him this week.
Did I have the Monday game with River? Yes? Okay, look, I'm not gonna complain too much. I think I thought about this, and I think I want to say this, like, at some point in time. We're not having River's game this week, but we did have it, this week. What did we do? Oh, I was late to it. That's right. That's why I almost forgot, because I was late, and I knew that I was going to be late, and I told everybody I was going to be late. I remember what happened. Apparently, a bunch of our players stopped some, like, local gangsters from doing crime and gangstery stuff, and so then they dressed up as guards and tried to basically arrest them. And so we had to help, those of us that didn't interfere had to help them out. Be like, hey, these aren't cops, these are just, like, gnomes in some uniforms who broke into our school. It's like they broke into a college, which has its own security force, without the security force, it was like, we're arresting you. And I'm like, that seems unusual, because usually, if there's a jurisdiction of, like, guards in an area, you'd at least have them accompanying them, you know? So it was kind of funny that way. I remember. Yeah. So, just because I was like... And then Momo had their Tuesday game, where we, did I even live? I think we didn't. We kept someone alive, but we really just... We dealt with the criminals, which included, like, a vampire person. So, yeah, we dealt with the criminals that had done the murder as part of our investigation. There's still a little bit more to do, because there's some loose ends to it. But the core people behind it have been taken care of, but there was, like, conspiracy related to it. So it's sort of like, the murder was only part of it, you know, and we probably should investigate the rest of what's going on there because of crime. Anyway, so, yeah. That's Tuesday. And then we had Wednesday.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it. We fought a ghost who was possessing a wyvern taxidermy.
Yeah.
And with some archers. And then I picked up some cursed swords, and that made Momo mad because he wanted to identify them first. That was my bad. I didn't realize. I don't know why. My brain was thinking 5e, where there's no way to identify a curse in 5e.
The way to identify a curse is to identify the item it's in, too. Like, I think that's the thing is, there had been... The thing is, Momo might have missed it. But also, like, I'm not going to lie, I didn't even think about it, but, like, these are just... They're, like, at least 2 of them, they're dick weapons, but it's fine. The third one really is an issue. You know, I'm like, the Berserker Sword...
One?
Yeah, that's the one that's really a problem if it activates. For everyone, not just for you, and I think that's the problem I have with it. Like, the other 2, they suck, but they're specifically a problem for you who's using them, you know? So it's a curse that you got into, like, that's like, so it's like, and,
yep.
Yeah.
And I really don't mind it. I think it's fun. I actually like the idea of curse stuff. Momo has a way of, like, where it's like, oh, I don't like feeling like I can't do the things I'm built for. I get that, but also it's kind of fun sometimes to be a little reckless. I
think that's the thing is, like,
because I didn't know if they were magical to know if it was worth picking them up. But then he's like, okay, well, and I didn't know Identify wasn't a, a first level spell. I was like,
Identify is a first level spell, but it just gives you +10 to spellcraft checks.
Oh, okay.
So it just makes your spellcraft better.
It's just me not knowing, and Momo could have spoken up. I don't know why. He
I think
got a little upset later.
It was getting later on the session. We had already had a lot of a long session at that point in time, and it's later on in the day, and we know how like it's been harder to do that, I think. So it's like there's just I think a lot of like the situation that doesn't help with this kind of thing.
Yeah, because we also asked him like several times before he spoke up. And we were like, okay, thank you for finally.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think it's also like, I don't know. I think there has just been like, the dungeon is wearing on the people that don't like it.
Yep, Momo and Lightning just are zoning out like crazy, and we have to get their attention, and it's like I'm having fun, and so it's like I get it.
I'm gonna tell you, but Lightning, Worm, the brain part, Worm. I know you're having fun, but it's the thing of like, I was having some fun too, but my fun is wearing down because this is very long.
Yes,
you know,
and
it is the same every time for me as a DM too.
Yes.
You know,
so also it's also less fun when two of your players aren't having fun, when half your players are not having fun. It's hard as a GM as well. Which is why I'm totally down kind of just going and fighting the final bosses and stuff. And why I'm okay, fine, we won't fight the
there isn't really a lot left anyway. I'm not like when I say this, I'm not really skipping anything for this. You actually finished everything off in the war tower. That was it.
Yep.
There's no more encounters here. There's no more encounters here. That's it. This tower's finished off.
There's another floor though.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Okay.
I don't think there's no more encounters here at least.
Interesting. So this guy's no longer a chain spirit. Does that mean there's a new one somewhere?
Yes. I mean somewhere else. And you'll learn where that is. Because I'm just having him like have some ravings of a madman, right, like he had like he kept notes because he was like an important general. So he like wrote some stuff down that's like the ravings of a madman, and he's like planning out all of his stuff to like, claim his revenge in his place once more, that kind of stuff. That's what he was doing. He was obsessed with that. So you learn about that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Anyway, and again, also I think
so
it's
I get it. Let's finish this up, and then we can move on. And then we have the last adventure. Sounds like it's going to be relatively short. It's going to be a lot more roleplay than like one dungeon, than more roleplay.
Again, I think the thing is, most of it is taken up by the dungeon, which is the palace. But it's the kind of dungeon you do not have to clear. So, like, yeah.
In fact, it can be a problem if you try and clear it.
Yeah. Certainly speaking, like, the longer you take, probably the more, like, if things go badly, certainly people could escape, the people you want to defeat.
So, yeah.
But there will probably be a little bit of setup with stuff with things.
That's why I said it's going to be roleplay, then one dungeon, then more roleplay. So it's a few sessions of roleplay, then a dungeon, then a few sessions of roleplay.
Pretty much. And again,
I don't know how many sessions the dungeon will take, so.
I don't know either, too, because I really have to. I've taken a look at the full thing and I see how large it is. But again, it's again like it's the kind of dungeon you're probably not going to go everywhere.
I mean,
I know.
Yeah, I mean I mean, think about it. Like what are they called? The people who were like from India, who were the Rakshasa people.
Yes.
They had a whole palace that was a whole dungeon if you wanted to just straight up attack them. But
you didn't need to. No.
Yeah. So we only did, the later part of the dungeon. And even then we didn't clear that thing. We just got what we wanted and got out.
Yeah, there was a possibility for a lot more fights and stuff too, and certainly I could have thrown more at you, but like it was also like
I mean we
it wasn't
properly
needed.
avoided. Yeah, we avoided the Sphinx. We managed to avoid the Sphinx.
That was like the major battle there, and like
and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and like the fact is it's one of those things is I don't know, because it's so many steps away, if I would necessarily want to have you roll out the fight with the brother, because I'm sorry, he is now officially much lower level than you, and whatever you would do to him, you could surprise him. Meaning, it really wouldn't be a fight. So it's sort of like, if you want to secure that family's help still and get rid of him as the guy in charge, you probably just have to come up with a plan for me. And
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like the plan would honestly be, if we want the sister's help, we have to take care of the brother without killing him, because she didn't want him dead.
Yeah, I mean she's still still siblings, even though, like, you know...
Yeah. So that's actually the hard part, is not fighting him, because obviously we could, but is getting him to stop, or you know, doing something so he's out of the way.
Capturing him, maybe, you know? So I feel like that's more like a problem for him, is coming up with a good plan. Because, like, Joe could, like, just take a -4 and beat the shit out of him. The amount of levels you gained at Scarwall, and being in the, like, he is much lower level than you.
Yep.
He was 2 adventures ago that you could have dealt with him.
Yep.
It is not a threat. I do have to roll out.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, he had a whole castle that we skipped. So yeah, no, there's totally like, and even that under dungeon, when we got what we wanted, we didn't really keep exploring.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, the thing is, I think it is a very old mentality that you have to clear out everything, and certain places, like, where you don't know what you're looking for, you do. You know, but once you know where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what we're looking for here. You know, we don't. Yeah. We found information, but we don't really know where all of the spirits are.
Oh,
the chain spirits.
I'm also going to tell you, because you will learn about it first of the session. The reason that guy's not chain spirit anymore is he got into a conversation with that dragon, and the dragon basically defeated him, and he was temporarily dead again. And that was broke the chain. And by the time he resurrected, he was no longer part of the chain. But the dragon wouldn't assume things like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, especially, when he knows he'll come back, he's like, oh, he's probably still, anyway.
Yeah. So, but apparently that's what broke it there, too. So it's a funny kind of thing, too, of, like, the dragon was like, I just beat him up. He was being a jerk to me.
Yep. That makes sense.
Anyway, I think it's going fine.
Yep.
The castle is gonna be fine. Hey, Momo. You're like, it's like the place is. It's an interesting theme, but I think the problems with the theme are what also make it harder for us all as a group to push forward. It's like every undead I have sucks to fight, and I know it sucks to fight. Is the problem? So like. I'm sorry, the guy you fought at the end was actually fine because he was just some kind of dude, you know?
Yep.
He was a threat, he had some abilities because he was undead, but they didn't suck, you know?
Yeah.
That's what made him an interesting kind of fight. Even the Byuk, the person possessing the thing, only because the adventure designs it to be less annoying, is it less annoying. Because guess what? It didn't have the ability to use its full possession abilities. Because it can possess people. Yeah. Which would have really sucked. It specifically built into the adventure. It can't do that because it's depressed. It's a depressed ghost.
Does not have the self-confidence to actually take someone.
That's why I did it really funny of, like, you know, like, it cast greater heroism on itself. It's like, I can do this. I can beat these people up. I can do it! It's trying to work through depression as it's fighting you. It's not really working very well.
Yep.
But no, like, Possession sucks. It's so annoying to deal with. Because you basically have to drop someone to get rid of the spirit. Or have sort of power magic. So yeah, no. Yeah. Oops, like, that's why I also, like, I do like that it's so hard to get to them. The devils are at least something interesting and different. There's not a lot of them, but it's at least something different, you know? They're using spells on you, or things, and their spells are probably exploding. They're probably exploding spells, you know?
Yeah. Are you sure it's not, Wall of Thorns?
God, yeah, no, Wall of Thorns was I can't believe it was ridiculous as it was, but I really wasn't thinking it was as ridiculous as it was. I thought it was something like Wall of Fire, you know?
Yeah. Yep. No, I get it. But I was just like, wow, this is one of those spells that just shuts down combat.
God. You know.
Yeah, Pathfinder's bad about that.
It does like to just remove one person from combat, too, a lot of times, which also just kind of sucks. You know?
Like, 2E can do that, but 2E you have to critically fail to do that.
Yeah. Definitely 2E is a lot. It's failure doesn't mean it shuts things down at least, too. You know, it just critically failing might mean something, but that's not, again, critically failing a lot harder to do. So I think that's like the
like
shutting people down completely.
Yeah, like the
sucks.
like their equivalent of baleful polymorph, for the one where it's like you only lose your intelligence if you if you critically fail. You know, it's like otherwise.
Well, that's why like whatever it had that had the stagger orb. I thought that wasn't too bad because it doesn't shut you down completely, but does limit what you can do. You know, that wasn't too bad. It sucks to be staggered because I can only take a move or a standard action. But that's not. I have no action. You know. So.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. The hardest thing about the new version of Pathfinder 2e is the renaming of everything, because it's like I just want like normal.
Yeah.
Like spell names.
Because Magic Missile's called something else now. It's like Force Missile or something.
Yep. And it's like... I'm trying to think.
Some spells have different names. Yep.
Yep.
And just learning those different names and having them in your brain. Yeah. Did we do anything else this week?
I mean, I did some stuff today, so you can check that out on YouTube. I can just do a shout out now.
Mm-hmm.
Then. I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter, and DiamondWyrm on YouTube, and DiamondWyrm on Blue Sky. So I did do a sort of stream today, which will be going up tomorrow as a VOD, and I'll probably be doing some more tomorrow. I basically just made some characters. I'm going to continue doing that. My goal is to basically just run some mock combats by myself in Pathfinder 2e, just to really get a better hang of, just so like if I do run the system, I kind of know how combat works.
Okay. Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Maybe I should invite you and we could...
I do have to relook at the core rules and see what kind of differences are between, because like, you know, it was one of those things this is a side note. When I first heard about the 3-action system of Pathfinder, I had my, like, suspicion of 2e. I was very suspicious of it, but really playing with it was such an interesting kind of, like, tactical thing of figuring out what your 3 things were, you know?
Yeah.
That it opened it up a lot more. Yeah, and you still have, like, your, like, more free actions and reactions and stuff like that, and, like... I think they have... I think they have some versions of, like, some more swift things, too, like, you know, but I think there might be some free actions.
Yeah, there's free actions, reactions. Sometimes it'll be like, a free action which can only be done once per turn, then basically.
Yeah. Well, those are like the swift actions you used to have before, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, generally it's 1 to 3 and free and reactions.
No, there's definitely some, I do have to, like, kind of, like, look at them. I think once I'm done Crimson Queen, I'm gonna do some smaller things first. Maybe a couple smaller games, like almost like one adventure games for a little bit. But I don't know if also I'll keep it on the Wednesday time slot or on a different time slot. I haven't decided on that yet, but I think I will hold off on anything big. And I might do like a 3-adventure 2nd edition path or something in the future or something too, you know. Yeah. I kind of want to put some variety to, you know, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Alright, for myself, make sure to check me out on all my stuff. It will be linked below. Social media, Discord, Twitter. Remember, as we shout out in the beginning, like, subscribing, the bell, all that stuff for the video. Comments, too. Helps support the channel. My social media is also linked below. You know, I'm going to be putting up a better schedule on, at least a general schedule on Discord, even if I just type it in, and probably up on Twitter and also up on my YouTube channel so people know what's kind of coming out. And I'm going to be doing a new stream schedule starting this week. Yay! I'm switching my schedule around a little bit. So, for those of you who want to join me there, the new schedule is I will be doing gaming on Tuesday. I will record my first 2 tabletop videos on Wednesday, and then have Crimson Queen, because I just found it. I'm like, wait a second. I just don't have time to do a lot of gaming on a Wednesday with everything I do in the afternoon before I do my second stream. Wait a second. Why don't I just switch those 2 days? It's a genius idea. And so Crimson Queen will be at 8 this week. So keep that in mind. We're going back an hour earlier. We're going to start. and then the other tabletop on Thursday, maybe some extra stuff, and then more gaming on Friday. I'm going to take Mondays off because I keep also discovering my Sundays are incredibly busy. It turns out when I have 1 day a week free, a lot of family stuff happens on that day. Man, maybe I should give an extra day off for like other stuff that doesn't have the screening. It just feels like a good idea. Anyway, so yeah, so that's my new weekly schedule. More, there you go. Anyway, all right, everybody.
Yep.
Bye for now. Farewell. Bye.
Bye.